Chapter 176. Well, that's just fucking disturbing, Jaleesa mutters. Language, I reply automatically. Jaleesa glances at me briefly and smirks, her face a disturbing mutation of what she looked like before. Had I not been told it was her, I'm not sure I would have guessed it. Her dark skin, her long white hair, the rounder configuration of her face, even her clothes are nothing like I'm used to. It's funny. It reminds me of back when I first went to New Talsi and I didn't understand that humans changed clothes every day. I'd think that someone was a different person the day after because their clothes changed. Now I know that everyone has a set of clothes that they wear, so I memorize all of their outfits and I only get confused if a bunch of things change at once. Even really minor changes can throw me off for a bit, though. I talked to Xena about it once, and she thought it might have something to do with my perfect memory. Most humans, because they don't compare experiences exactly, still recognize something as long as it's kinda similar. I think that's weird. If something is kinda similar, that means it's still different, right? I'm going to reserve my right to swear on this one, Lark, Jaleesa comments, breaking me out of my thoughts. Things look bad over there. Really bad. The best way to solve it is a swift resolution to the current crisis, Lady Vesuvius insists. Your first priority is to not be suspected. Your second priority is to locate ours. Is that understood? Makes sense to me, Jaleesa agrees. You're sure my soul shield will protect me from ours mindfuckery, right? Yes, this has been tested, Lady Vesuvius confirms. Though there is always a worst-case scenario in which the talent has since evolved, I believe you will still be able to protect yourself. Remember, it spreads through contact, and it spreads automatically. The hosts don't know they're propagating it, but they will feel an urge to make contact with you or shake your hand if you draw too much attention to yourself. Pretend to also be indoctrinated. I can do that, Jaleesa confirms. Well, I guess I should start walking. You guys going to stay camped here? In the unlikely event that we move, I will be sure to leave a way for you to track us, Lady Vesuvius nods. Jaleesa nods, then turns to face me, arms open. Hey. One for the road? She asks. I nod and quickly sidle up against her body, letting her wrap her arms around me and give me a squeeze. She's so warm. She makes me so happy. She smells so good. Memories of blood and human flesh flicker to the forefront of my mind, but I banish them as best I can. Don't let the two monsters push you around, Lark. Jaleesa insists, pulling back from the hug and scratching me behind the ears. All three of us are monsters, I remind her. She gives me a meaningful look, not that I have any idea what the meaning is supposed to be, and turns to depart, leaving the rest of us invisible in the middle of a field. Well, invisible to everyone else, anyway. We can see each other just fine, and regardless of our disagreement on the semantics of monsterhood, Jaleesa is right to worry about leaving me alone with Vita and Lady Vesuvius, at least a little bit. They both taste really, really good, after all. This is so annoying, Vita grumbles, flopping to the ground. I turn to her, a bit surprised by the comment. What is, Aunt Vita? I ask. She perks up immediately, sitting straighter and looking at me with the same unreadable expression as always. I've been trying to memorize the different ways her eyes move, but I honestly have no idea how she's feeling. Huh? Aunt Vita, huh? Do you not want me to call you that? I ask. I assumed she did, since why else would she go out of her way to point out the relationship? Besides, I don't feel like our relationship is positive enough for me to be comfortable with dropping formalities, but I don't want to call her princess. Nah, it's fine, I guess, Vita admits. I don't mind it. I like you well enough. I'm just surprised because I thought you didn't like me. I blink at her, trying to figure out the best way to answer that. Aunt Vita, I don't really like anyone in my family, I tell her. No one alive, anyway. She makes some concerning noises that are probably alien laughter, based on how she slaps her knee. That's a pretty fair answer. She admits. I kinda think of things the opposite way. I like everyone in my family, and if I don't like someone I don't consider them family anymore. Like ours? I prompt. Yeah, like ours, she confirms. Annoying bastard. I can't believe he did this shit right when I'm trying to take over. I hesitate, wringing my hands together. Gosh, what a horrible thing to say. How annoying that this awful monster uprooted the lives of a nation before I could get around to doing it first. Come on, Vida grunts. If you've got something to say, just say it. You remind me a lot of how I used to be, I answer after a brief hesitation. Are you calling me short? Vida protests. This is the tallest I've ever been, thank you very much. No. What? Aunt Vida, I'm saying you have no regard for human life. Oh, Vida answers. Well, you're wrong. If that were true, my conquest plans would be a lot easier. Fuck, actually, I wouldn't even have conquest plans. I'd be up living the good life back in Liriope. I'm literally only helping out because I want to save everyone's lives. If I didn't care I'd just say fuck it and let the other Athanatos slaughter you all. That's. Aunt Vida, there are so many important degrees of nuance between willing to let literally everyone die and genuinely empathetic. And I'm genuinely an empath. I suppress a groan. What am I supposed to say here? I will be disappointed if that is the limit of your capacity for introspection, Vida, Lady Vesuvius comments blandly. That causes the bug girl to bristle, flinching slightly and clenching her lower pair of fists. I've always had a bit of a soft spot for chitin, since most of my first meals were armored in some capacity. Honestly, though, the mouthfeel is terrible. If not for my nostalgia, and the fact that it tastes just as good as any other body part, one would probably not have any real desire to eat it. Okay, yes, you're right, Vida grumbles. I don't really care about most people. And honestly, even with the people I do care about, I don't really have any idea how to show that. Other than existing near them, I guess. But on a whole? Yeah, I couldn't really care less if this whole country fell into the miss. All I feel is irritation at the fact that I have to be here and deal with it at all. I swallow nervously. I'm hesitant to say this, but somebody should. Stuff like that makes the prospect of you being in charge of this country, or any other, profoundly terrifying, I tell her. Do you get that? Do you understand how horrifying it would be to have some demigod queen that strolls in, kills a bunch of people, puts herself in charge and just doesn't care about anyone? Vida flops backwards and lies on the dirt. Yeah, she admits. I do. I'm not stupid. I know people are scared of me and I know I'd be scared of me in their shoes. But what else am I going to do, Lark? Nothing. Just sit around and let shitty things happen. Fuck that, I'm not completely heartless. And the problem is that it feels like the people currently in charge are. I grew up starving and homeless, you know? A lot of people did, and no one was doing anything to stop it. How am I going to make people actually fix shit if I'm not in charge? What makes you so confident that your totalitarian crocracy is going to fix things at all, though? I challenge. Because I'm basing it on a system that I know works. Vida snaps back. It's not one-to-one, and it's not perfect, but it works. The people there are happy, they are well-fed, they are living lives that they're proud of. How many people do you know who can say that? It's not that simple, Vida, Lady Vesuvius says. You can't just copy over a system of government that you have a passing familiarity with and apply it to a completely different species, a completely different culture, and expect it to work. The propositions you've made might work how you imagine them, I won't deny that the potential exists. But the way you're presenting it, it's clear you don't have a grasp of how people will react to your words, or at the very least you don't care how people will react to your words, and that's a problem. You want to make the island a better place? You have to care about what other people think. Rulership is about managing the needs and desires of other people, finding compromises and making things work. It's admirable that you want people to be happy, but if you don't have a real strategy for that beyond use forced undead labor, because undead are happy, You are not the slightest bit prepared to make your dreams a reality? Then help me, damn it. Vida counters. I told you from the start that I want you to help me figure this out. You know how to rule. You figure out a way to make things work. If I had a viable strategy for uniting the island under a singular ruler that wouldn't do more harm than good, I would have implemented it already, Lady Vesuvius says flatly. You can't just fly around and declare yourself queen by right of conquest. Being seen as a legitimate leader, which is what you'll need to be in charge, is a complex and time-consuming process. Well, we don't have a lot of time, Vida grumbles. If I don't have real progress by the time Liriope floats overhead again, I'm going to look incompetent. Because I can just fly around in right of conquest everyone's asses off, Penelope, so that's what everyone is expecting. I want a better option, but it is to actually be better by the metrics that Liriope decides are important, or we're back to square one. And what happens then? Lady Vesuvius asks, stepping closer to loom over Vida. What happens if we're back to square one, and the war with Iveric resumes? Who do you side with, Vida? Vida props herself up on her lower pair of elbows, crossing her other pair of arms and looking away. She's quiet, her antennae twitching in a way that reminds me of how some humans glance around without actually looking at anything when they're thinking hard enough. Let's just try to make sure that doesn't happen, okay? Vida answers quietly. Lady Vesuvius glowers down at her, and I shiver. I haven't seen her express that much fury, or for that matter, any emotion, since before she turned herself all scaly. You know what I'd have to do, she threatens. Like I said, Vida presses, let's avoid that. Okay? Help me. Lady Vesuvius sighs and looks away, her muscles visibly relaxing a little under her scales. Okay, she agrees. But you're going to have to learn to compromise. Vida's expression remains unreadable to me, and she doesn't answer. Instead, she pulls out some of the meat rations we brought along for the journey, puts a soul shard in one of them, and hands it to me. Thank you, Aunt Vida, I say, swallowing it whole and relishing in the blissful flavor, the constant, gnawing hunger vanishing for the smallest instant as it slides down my throat. Then the feeling is gone, and the urges to kill everyone return anew. You're welcome, Vida answers, and she sounds like she means it. She unfolds the bottom of her chin, mandibles stretching outward and unveiling a long, thorny tongue that wraps around one of the other meat rations and slurps it up. She reaches up to offer the last one to Lady Vesuvius, who simply holds up a hand to decline. Vida shrugs, puts another soul shard in the meat, and tosses it at me, which I find so surprising that I instinctively jump up and catch it with my teeth. I land and swallow, my ears folded back and a blush forming on my cheeks as I wilt under the surprised stares of both Vida and Lady Vesuvius. Then Vida busts out laughing. Oh, progenitor, that was amazing. She chokes out. Just like. Rar, snatch. You just surprised me. I stammer and protest. I just felt food flying towards my face, so. Holy shit, you're adorable, Vida chuckles, causing my face to heat up even more. And she is an empath, so she can actually tell I'm blushing. No. Vida chuckles to herself a bit more, but starts to quickly peter out as she glances out towards the city Jalisa Vida is investigating in. I look over that way as well, but I don't see anything. Do you ever wonder anything about your species? She asks. Huh? I blurt, surprised by the sudden change in topic. Do you wonder about yourself? Vida repeats. Or Vrothizo in general? I'm not sure how to answer that. Honestly, I don't like thinking about it at all. My species is terrible, but however the Mistwatcher made me isn't my place to question. It's not the kind of thing I can expect answers to before I die. Vida turns to stare directly at me, tilting her head slightly. Are you still on about? Lark, I can just ask, she insists. Your species wasn't made by the Mistwatcher, remember? You guys were made by Nora, who is my big sister, and I can talk to her right now. You don't need faith. I can get you the truth. But my soul is what determines. Your soul doesn't come from the one below either, Vita corrects, cutting me off. I suspect it's booted from your biological mother via an automatic process, but I can ask about that too. Also, even if your soul did come from the one below all, that wouldn't have any effect on your sapience because natural souls just adapt themselves to whatever brain they bond with. They are not personalized in the slightest. Back me up on this, Penelope. She's right, Lark, Lady Vesuvius sighs. I can independently confirm this. There's no compelling evidence to support the veracity of the religion you prescribe to, and plenty of conflicting evidence easily collected by rudimentary animancy. I also don't believe Vita is lying, nor has incentive to lie, and her expertise on the topic is similarly proven. The more I learn about animancy, the more her story adds up, Jalisa told me. I shudder. Is this why animancy is forbidden? Does it corrupt your mind just from learning about it? No. No way. Jalisa isn't corrupted, that's absurd. You're looking at it the wrong way around, Vita supplies. It is forbidden because it makes you stop believing in the church, but not because it mentally influences you. It's because animancy disproves the church, and the church is incentivized to keep as many people unable to do that as possible. Not that the church would keel over and die if the facts which directly contradict its existence come to light, of course, Penelope shrugs. The vast majority of its members are genuine believers, and the church's vague tenets are flexible enough to bend around most provable facts and strong enough to hold firmly against any unprovable opinions. Honestly, the information ban seems somewhat unnecessary in that light, so it might exist precisely for the reasons given. Animancy is prone to enable horrid acts of unspeakable evil because of the sheer amount of power it gives you over other people. But regardless of the reason behind the ban, violating it significantly enough makes it fairly obvious that most of the claims about the Mistwatcher purported by the church are fallacious. I scowl, shrinking in on myself a little. Why does everyone keep pushing me about this? I ask. Why is everyone so insistent on being right and proving me wrong? Can't you just leave me alone and let me believe what I want? Isn't that perfectly reasonable? No, Vita grunts, I can't leave it alone, because the church won't leave me alone. Haven't we been over this before? They want me dead because of what I am, or at the very least they want me to renounce what I am and pretend to be like them. I'm the one that wants to be left alone by them, Lark. Melissa is, too. I wouldn't have a single fucking problem with the church if they haven't been constantly pressing me to conform or suffer, but not only do they keep fucking doing that, they act like they're doing me a favor while they do it. It's maddening. I don't do that, though. I snap. Lark, you literally killed me because they told you to. I open my mouth, then close it. Okay, you're absolutely right about that, I admit. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have. But I don't do that anymore. No, you don't, Vita agrees. But you're going to have to forgive me for being really fucking pissed off at your religion regardless, okay? That kind of ends the conversation, doesn't it? She's mad and she's going to be mad no matter what. And? I mean, I can understand that. I don't like it, but I understand. On my part, Lady Vesuvius supplies, I do not have much personal enmity for the organization beyond their governmental coup, which the common believer isn't the least bit complicit in. I simply bristle at any philosophy that insists on the rejection of likely possibilities. This issue is far from exclusive to the Church of the Mistwatcher, of course, but it's a prevalent enough problem in its ranks to be noteworthy. That said, finding a critical thinker is delightful regardless of the conclusions they've drawn, and I've enjoyed stimulating conversations with devout church followers, despite our mutual confidence in each other's incorrectness. So to that end, please permit me to turn the question around, why do you believe what you believe? I hesitate, but only for a short moment. I've thought about this before. I have the memories of those thoughts, just waiting to be quoted. Though at the same time, I want to change them a little, consider this conversation and apply them to it. Lady Vesuvius is testing me, I think. Despite my mixed feelings on her situation, I want her to think well of me. I worship the Mistwatcher because I want to be a good person, I tell her. That's all it is. Yeah, and a fat lot of Vita. Lady Vesuvius snaps, cutting her off. Let Lark speak. I can't see souls, not like the two of them can, but my senses still bristle at the invisible terror of Vita brandishing her tendrils, her current expression saved to my memory as my reference for furious. Just as quickly, though, the feeling fades, and she gives an imperceptible nod before turning away. I mean, looking at how Vita has been treated, without the justification of animancy being inherently evil, what we did, what Jalisa told me the church did. It all seems downright barbaric. But what scares me is that's kind of how old justice is, when you think about it. If someone does something wrong and they get away with it, that's horrible and people want to correct it. But if someone doesn't do anything wrong and they get punished for it anyway, that's even worse. So it's really important to know what makes something wrong. It's a necessary distinction. But I don't know how to make that distinction. I wasn't born knowing right from wrong. I very clearly remember what it's like not knowing right from wrong, not even having a concept that I could be doing wrong. Before August brought me to church, I never really understood what I had done. I didn't have words for it. But then there was this thing in my life that did have the words. It did know right from wrong, and it knew I was wrong. The Mistwatcher knew I was evil, and his servants knew how to teach me that. And I need that. I need that desperately, because I'm evil. I was born evil, my instincts are evil, and I have to fight them all the time. I am constantly holding back, constantly stopping myself from slaughtering thousands of people just like Piero did. Do you have any idea what that's like? Yes, Lady Vesuvius answers. You. What? I ask. I said yes, Lady Vesuvius repeats. I know exactly what that's like. I restrain myself from committing genocide on a daily basis, Lark. My talent allows me to create diseases, and I gain perverse pleasure from unleashing them on people. My entire life has been a constant struggle to restrain those impulses, and sometimes I fail, and people die horrifically as a result. Oh, I whisper. But if you enjoy it, why don't you kill more? Well, at first it was self-preservation, Penelope says. Even as a child I knew I would get in trouble for killing people, and unlike you I was held accountable by people much stronger than I was. But if I'd had the opportunity to kill and get away with it, I almost certainly would have. Later on, the fear of punishment continued to keep me in check, but it was slowly replaced with jealousy, I think. In the years before meeting Vita I wanted to be like other people, to be able to care about them in the way that you can. I felt I was deficient for lacking that capacity, and I tried to fake it as best I could. But people could still tell something was off about me, and I never perfected the charade until after I'd stopped yearning and started being profoundly bitter. I couldn't hold my urges back, and I didn't want to try anymore. So I joined the Hunters Guild in order to kill things legally, and the rest is a story for another time. Suffice to say, I expect that the semblance of morality that I developed was nothing more than a parroting habit. A good noble is supposed to care about her subjects and cure their ills, and I was trying to play the part in order to form some kind of connection with someone. You're being a little too hard on yourself, Penelope, Vita murmurs. You did genuinely care, at least to some degree. You cared about my siblings, for starters. Maybe on some level, to some extent, Lady Vesuvius admits. But that didn't stop me from violating numerous codes of ethics when working on them. It worked out okay, I suppose, and to some degree that conveys my point better, which is thus, I understand how you feel, and ultimately I think we have a similar answer to the question of why don't you kill more. It's because we can wish to do evil and wish to do good simultaneously. That isn't a contradictory state of affairs. Your conflicting desires are both part of you, because integrity isn't a matter of not being tempted, it's merely a matter of not giving in to temptation. Okay, sure, I shrug. But what makes the temptation to help someone good, and the temptation to eat someone evil? That's what I care about. Because eating people sure feels really good, you know? Can confirm, Vita nods sagely. Souls are delicious. I believe that a good action is one that benefits at least one person other than the actor, and that an evil action is one which hurts at least one person other than the actor. Lady Vesuvius answers plainly. Note that neither definition cares for how an action impacts the actor themselves. As such, eating someone for no reason beyond your desire to do so helps only you and hurts someone else, and is unambiguously evil. That sounds a little strange. Doesn't that make self-defense evil? I ask. Society as a whole benefits when aggressors are able to be dealt with by the aggressed, so no. Stopping a greater act of evil and discouraging repeat acts of evil is a clear net gain, even if the physical act of attacking an attacker hurts them. Then it's not that simple. I insist. You're saying actions can hurt and help people at the same time? Yes. Obviously, Lady Vesuvius answers. Most actions have both good and evil consequences. Where did you ever get the impression otherwise? But if actions are good and evil, how do you figure out if they're good or evil? Well, oftentimes, you don't. That's the problem. I declare, pointing at her. We can't tell right from wrong a lot of the time, but the Miss Watcher can. It sees everything, it's incomprehensibly intelligent compared to us, it made the world. We're weak and stupid and unreliable. Humans are way better than you and I at figuring out moral problems, and they're still terrible at it. They do evil things all the time. How am I supposed to trust anything but the Mistwatcher when it comes to something as universally important as right and wrong? Lady Vesuvius stares at me a while, her face impassive but her scales swirling with color, green, gray, and tints of blue. Then she sighs, curling her massive tail underneath her and sitting down on top of it. I am terrified of the likely possibility that we don't have a choice, Lark, she answers quietly. Perhaps what you say is true. Perhaps there is a universal constant, divine or otherwise, that defines righteousness. That good versus evil is as simple as obedience versus defiance. But when I look at the world and see all the ways the Church's claims contradict my observations, I'm forced to wonder, what if there is no universal goodness? What if there is no afterlife? What if this world has no inherent meaning at all? What should I do then? So I thought about it. I defined what I believe to be the most universal definition of good and evil, I constructed the principles I felt I should live by, and then I found the Church lacking. I found that, by the definition of rightness I most firmly held in my heart, they were an obstacle rather than the allied bastion they so claimed to be. And then, I knew I could not believe. Even if you are correct, even if the Mistwatcher does take some of us to heaven, I would have to fight it because it also leaves us to be tortured. The fact that I find the evidence indicates heaven does not exist is merely a fortunate coincidence. I have more than enough enemies without adding God to their number. She scowls then, glancing briefly towards Vida. Or so I thought, anyway. The Mistwatcher apparently will not let something so paltry as a lack of divinity prevent it from tormenting our entire world to suit its whims. But that is a problem to deal with in the coming eternity. I shudder a bit. The way she frames war on God as a mere future inconvenience, as something she'll get around to eventually, as if it were simply low on a list of basic tasks to be completed in sequence. It's surreal. I am very often reminded by my friends and acquaintances that I am powerful, that I am the sort of being that could not be stopped by countless numbers of normal humans. I am too fast, too strong, too capable of regeneration for normal weapons to do me any real harm. I am a step above them, but Vida and Penelope are far above me. The scent of their souls is intoxicating, a sort of power that even my mad, utterly thoughtless instincts know to fear. Though on some level, I think I'm focusing on that to ignore Lady Vesuvius' words. They ring a little bit too true for my liking. The ones I thought I could trust to tell me right from wrong have hurt too many people for me to be able to trust them anymore. And if they're wrong, well, how am I supposed to know what's right? How do I do what Lady Vesuvius did, and decide for myself? How do I have that confidence? I don't like not having a purpose, I admit. Not having a plan. I never knew what the plan was, but I liked that it was there. It made things feel easier to handle, believing there's a reason I exist. There's a reason you exist, Lark, Vita chimes in. There's a reason we all exist, it's just that the reason isn't particularly grand or important. I exist because some crazy bastard we're here to kill decided to get his questionably consenting wife pregnant before injecting the baby with an imperfect copy of the Mistwatcher's anima structure, and this somehow didn't backfire dramatically. And I'm here because nobles are expected to have children, so my parents didn't think very hard about whether or not they were capable of raising one before having a lot of unprotected sex. Lady Vesuvius agrees. So I'm going to offer again, Vita tells me. Because you have a creator, and you can get these answers. Is there anything you'd like her to tell you? I swallow saliva, feeling my heart beat painfully in my chest. I want to say, why would you make us at all? But I already know the answer to that. Vita already told me. I'm a mouth. I'm nothing but a tool to make someone else stronger. I wanted to believe I was more than that, but I'm really not, am I? I was never meant to be. There was never any good I was supposed to bring to the world. So that just leaves one burning question. Why am I a person, I ask, instead of a thing? Because I should be a thing, shouldn't I? If I'm nothing but a mouth to feed this Nora, I'm doing a much poorer job at it than my mindless siblings, aren't I? I specifically and purposefully avoid my instincts to eat. So why am I like this? Why was I made this way? If the Mistwatcher really doesn't have a plan for me, if my real goddess is Nora, what plan does she have? Vita stares at me for a while, but then she nods. I can ask that, she says. Shake me awake if something happens, okay? She lies back down on the ground and goes still, her breathing slowing to an almost hibernation-like state. Lady Vesuvius watches her briefly and then, to my surprise, lifts herself 6 feet off the ground with her own tail, twisting around to watch the city for a moment before lowering herself back to the ground again. Jelisaveta seems to be coming back, she reports. There's no sign of a problem. That's good, I say, and she nods. It's a while before Vita wakes back up again, but we wait in silence until she finally takes a deep breath, indicating her attention is back on us. Well, she mutters, stretching her body and returning to a sitting position, I'm going to give you her exact words, I think. Huh. Interesting thing to specify. Does she just want to be precise? I can appreciate that. I'm giving you her exact words because I don't think you'll like them and I don't want you to blame me, Vita clarifies. Oh. So, here's what she said, Vrothizo-sapiens is an entirely unintended side effect of their adaptive nature, and its ability to override their instincts is unexpected, unplanned, and moderately undesired. Oh. It is, at least, quite interesting, Vita continues, still sounding like she's quoting. Vrothizo that are born relying exclusively on their instincts almost never develop intelligence by devouring large numbers of sapient creatures. However, their children do once those traits are passed on. I believe this is due to the fact that Vrothizo souls have to spend some time growing in their vessel before the bodies hatch, and the ones that have intelligence already present in their brain structures gain the ability to rely on that intelligence over the concerns of the instincts that are supposed to be all-pervasive. It's a bit frustrating, but within acceptable bounds of variance, so fixing the problem isn't worth the investment at this juncture. And that's it. So, I'm not supposed to be anything, then. I'm just a monster who's so bad at being a monster I can't even do that right. Regardless of what creator deity I belong to, I'm still a failure. I'm either too much of a monster or not enough of one. Vita says awkwardly. I think the important takeaway here is actually, shut up, I hiss, feeling my body tense up and my muscles burn with barely contained rage. Excuse me. She challenges all imperiously. As if she's somehow earned my respect, as if she's somehow due a modicum of propriety. No. Not anymore. Not when she never gives anyone any. She just pushes and pushes and pushes until she gets her way or something breaks. Does she want me to be afraid of her? What does she think I'm worried about dying? I said shut up. I shouted at her. Why do you always do this? Every time. Every time we meet you just have to take something good in my life and smash it into nothing. You act like you're trying to help but you just make everything terrible. I don't know if you're doing it on purpose or not, but now you want to do it to a fucking nation, so I can't decide which would be worse. I let the swear leave my lips and I feel nothing, because I earned that one. Stop trying to help me, Vida. Stop acting like you know what's best for me, stop messing with my head. I feel my lips curling back, my black fangs revealing themselves for the world to see. I don't care. It doesn't matter. Everyone says the Mist Watcher is evil now anyway, even Jalisa. August was wrong. He was wrong. All of it was wrong. So what does it matter? I wasted most of my life on a lie. A rush of air passes between my teeth, a warning hiss that conveys how I feel far better than any human words. My fight or flight is in charge right now, and I'm the only one here that doesn't have wings. If she wants me to be a monster so bad I should just eat her first. Vida watches me, still sitting on the ground, and her expression is doubly unreadable thanks to the fact that I have absolutely no desire to parse it. I don't care how she feels. I just want to hurt her. I'm sorry, Vida says calmly. I do not care. I do not give a fuck. I'm going to eat her. I'm going to tear through her armor and swallow her organs. I'm going to find out what color her blood is and bathe in it. I growl even louder, tensing my legs to pounce, and, lark. Someone shouts, and barrels into my chest. My talons are dug firmly into the dirt so I don't even stumble, instead twisting my head immediately to bite out their throat. The deliciously human smell of a familiar meal enters my nostrils and I realize it's Jalisa. It's Jalisa. Oh God, stop, it's Jalisa, it's Jalisa, it's Jalisa, stop, stop. My body freezes. A tiny trickle of blood drips down one tooth and onto my tongue, and I almost lose myself again. But it's Jalisa. If I close my mouth even a little, I'll bite through her throat and she'll die. She's hugging me, even though she doesn't like hugs. It's Jalisa. Hesitantly, I suck in a deep breath of air and slowly, carefully, move my fangs away from her throat. She remains clinging to me and I take a few more slow breaths, trying to ignore her scent. In and out. In, out. I refuse to kill my mother the way I did my dad. You don't need anyone else to give you a purpose, Lark, she tells me. You don't, and you never did. I let out a shuddering breath. I almost don't want to tell her the truth, but it's Jalisa. I force myself to speak. I want someone to, though, I whisper. I don't know what to do on my own. Can't I let someone else be in charge? Is that okay? The next breath I take makes my whole body shudder, heralding the coming of tears. I don't like myself, I admit. I don't trust myself. Even if you're right, even if I don't need it. Does it make me weak to want my purpose to come from someone else? Oh, Lark, Jalisa murmurs, squeezing me tighter. No. It doesn't make you weak. Slowly, I wrap my arms around her, hugging her back. We stay like that, standing and hugging as tears run from my eyes. I don't know how long it takes for my shuddering gasps to even out and my face to dry out, but we keep hugging even after that happens, and we don't stop until Lady Vesuvius awkwardly clears her throat. As loath as I am to halt what seems to be an important moment in Lark's emotional development, she says flatly, we do have a megalomaniacal animancer to deal with. And also we should kill ours. Hey, Vida protests. I don't have a confirmed location, Jalisa says as I reluctantly allow her to extract herself from my arms. But I do have a very good guess. Supplies all around the country are being rerouted somewhere, and people are suffering because of it. Ours is taking a well-oiled machine and ripping all the gears out so he can build something else, fucking over everyone that was relying on them in the process. This big city here is doing fairly okay, but some of the smaller villages are literally being starved out as their supplies are all taken and funneled into whatever's going on. And nobody cares. It's freaky. Anyway, I bet if we find where those supplies are going, we find ours. Then that is our next step, Lady Vesuvius declares. Do you have a direction? I have the exact road, Jalisa confirms. We can follow it by air easily. Excellent. Lady Vesuvius turns to me, lifting herself up with her tail a bit in order to get to her feet more easily. Are you good to fly, Lark? Yeah, I sniff. I'm fine. Let's go. She nods and scoops me up into her arms, and before I know it we're all in the sky. Jalisa points in a direction the journey begins anew, swift and invisible. Lady Vesuvius? I ask. Yes, Lark. When we get back to town, I'd like to take you up on seeing if I can acquire traits of biomantically enhanced creatures. It's very slight, but the near-emotionless dragon woman does smile, just a bit. Very well, Lark, she answers, and then we follow the road in silence. Chapter 177. Out of all the secret bases ours could have been hiding in, I can't decide whether or not I very much should have or very much should not have expected the state capital of Balduni. Hundreds of souls, then thousands, then tens of thousands all enter my sensory radius in short order, an almost blinding density to it all that not even Skyhope can compare to. It's weirdly layered in the same way the city Jalisa scouted is. Walkways on top of walkways, bridges on top of bridges, ways to get from the top floor of towering buildings to the top floor of a building across the city without ever getting closer to the ground. It reminds me of the caves above and below Liriope. We once lived on the surface of our island, back far before the progenitor uplifted us into what we are today. Populations expanded, though, and our island is not very wide, so we had to dig down. Down into the stone, learning through trial and error how to make vast caverns throughout the entirety of our island's innards without collapsing everything in a chain reaction of death. These humans have done the same, as they're unable to expand with their land cut off from the rest of the island by the chasm of disdain. But rather than go down, they've gone up. They have bridges instead of tunnels, structures instead of caves, but the philosophy is the same. There's something endearing about that. But I don't really have time to think about it much. I feel him. He's here. My so-called father and his abomination of a soul. We found him. I am very, very tempted to just teleport over to him and kill him immediately, but unfortunately I have reason to believe he knows at least the basics of teleportation and anti-teleportation strategies, and those are very annoying. Getting to him is going to be a pain and a half. Not because I can't teleport directly to him, since I absolutely can. It's obvious at a distance that the city doesn't have a teleportation disruption field. It does, however, have a teleportation detection field, and that's where things get messy. If I try to teleport to him, he'll have a split second to teleport away before my spell completes, and if he does that we almost certainly lose him. While we might get lucky, and catch him by surprise, it's really not worth the risk. It takes me about 2 to 3 minutes to gather and store enough mana for a teleportation spell, so he'll be long gone by the time I'm able to chase after him if he reacts fast enough. It's way too big a risk. Likewise, I can't prevent him from teleporting away and just fly over to the guy. The city is way too big to wrap a disruption field around it with the amount of metal I sense nearby. And if I try to remove or disable the detection field, it'll almost certainly alert him of that. But maybe not. The field is most likely powered by metal spikes driven into the ground around the circumference of the city, and if I can get close enough to one I should be able to figure out how it works and decide our options from there. Of course, that means I'll probably have to infiltrate a secure facility to get access to it, which is another point of failure. So yeah. Every option is pretty annoying. What are you thinking? Penelope asks me, and I turn to look at her. We're still hovering high in the air, miles away from the capital. He's here, I confirm. His soul is even more fucked up than the last time I felt it. He still has that disgusting core of flesh-textured darkness, sucking and pulsing and lapping up everything around it, and he still has the obscene grafts clutching onto his core like parasitic larvae. They are far larger and more numerous now, and with my superior Liriope education it's pretty clear what they are, talents. Ars has given himself over a dozen different talents, and there's no way to know what any of them actually do until and unless he uses them on us. That's very dangerous, but it doesn't really change our plan. I don't think there's any way we can reliably prevent him from teleporting away, I tell her. So instead, we have to bait him into teleporting away while I'm in a position to track the teleportation, then follow it and assassinate him after he reaches his destination. Not even Capital can immediately teleport twice in a row, she has to wait at least a couple seconds. Penelope muses. I could teleport us both to him, and then you could teleport us when he teleports away? That could. No, wait. He can do that, too. Potentially. Chain teleports with Capita. They might not have the coordination for that, but it's a possibility we shouldn't ignore. He couldn't teleport last we saw him, Penelope says, frowning slightly. Otherwise he wouldn't have killed himself to escape sight for when things looked dicey. And is Capita with him? She is, currently, I confirm. If we can lure her away, that could be an opportunity, but ultimately I think we want to get close to him and force him to teleport first. Then I feed you his destination coordinates, you take us there, then if he ports again I follow after him alone. Can't you take me with you? You're very heavy, Penelope, I tell her. I can do it, but it would consume so much mana I wouldn't be immediately able to flood the area with myself and stop ours from casting, and no offense but I think that's a more valuable tool for the assassination. She nods slightly, a bit irritated by my assessment but not denying it. So, I figure we have two options, I continue. The first is to sneak our way as close to ours as possible, making sure he doesn't teleport away until I get within about 50 meters or so. If he teleports within that range, I should be able to track his destination and then we'll be golden. The downside is that if he teleports before we get close enough, we're screwed. The other option is that there's a field around the city to detect teleportation. I think I should be able to jury-rig myself into the detection field's alert system, using it to extend my range and alert me if ours teleports, and to where. If I get that working, he can teleport from anywhere in the city and we'll still be able to nail him, but it'll take a while and we'll have to infiltrate somewhere that's probably fairly well protected. What do people think? Why can't we just do both? Lark asks. Because I can't be in two places at once, I tell her simply. So? Lark asks. Why did you even bring us if you expect us to be useless without you? I signal irritation with my eyes, not that she can comprehend the expression. Our whole conversation kind of got to me in a way I don't understand and I'm not particularly sure that I like. Sure, there were the bits about how I consistently and repeatedly ruined good things in her life, and okay, I can see that. I think it's a little unfair, it's not like I created her fucked up species or anything, but it's not totally unfair. We've had our conflicts, and they were some of the absolute lowest points in her life. I've disliked people for worse reasons. So why am I so annoyed? Is it because of Malik's lingering crush? I don't think it is. Malik might be part of why I'm unwilling to just write her off like I might with someone else. But I'm thankfully not attracted to her anymore. Is it because she is being a brat? She's literally a child, I should be mature enough to take that in stride. Well, whatever. I've got to deal with the situation first. Lark, can you magically reshape a segment of a metal network array without disturbing its function enough to detectably disrupt it? I ask. Well, no, she admits, but... And could you invisibly track down ours in order to record the spatial translocation signature in the event of a teleportation? I press, cutting her off. This is the most important part of the operation, I need her to not be snarking at me and actually contribute. Is it a spell I can just cast and leave on? She asks. Or is there a bunch of nuance in its operation? Huh? What does it matter if you don't know how to cast the spell? I ask. Just teach it to me, Vita. She snaps. I have a perfect memory, I can figure it out in like 5 minutes if you help. Huh. She even has 4 arms, I can actually teach her how to cast it like an Athanatos. Gah, now I look like the idiot again. Oh. That's why I'm mad. I'm mad because I got treated like a kid while Lark and Penelope had an intellectually stimulating conversation. Which, of course they did. I was acting like an asshole. I was acting like Vita. Just Vita. Just the angry girl who doesn't have time for introspection because everyone is out to get her. I've been feeling more and more like that ever since I returned to Verdantop, and I'm not sure I like it. We're on Vita's island, around Vita's friends, fighting Vita's enemies and dealing with Vita's problems. No one here even knows Morosa, no one would even think to call me that. So I've defaulted to Vita, to old habits and comfortable defaults. I've been griping when I should be listening. Of course Penelope would treat Lark with more respect than she treats me if I'm acting like that. It would have been obvious if I'd been thinking more like Morosa. So, that's who I need right now. I need to be the war princess, not the lich. I know what that's like, because she is me. There's no reason I should be stuck with old habits. I just have to let myself be myself. I want to do that. It feels like I've been neglecting Morosa, or something. Or I'm neglecting myself, since that's me? Whatever, it doesn't matter. I know how to walk this walk. I take a deep breath, let it out, and then turn to look seriously at Lark. You're absolutely right, I tell her. My apologies. I've been stressed and dismissive, and it's been problematic for everyone. Splitting up is a good plan, as long as you two don't get caught. I'll teach you the spell, but it'll be a lot different than the casting style you're used to. Are you up for that? Lark blinks in surprise, but nods. I think so, but we won't know for sure until we try, she says. Fair enough, I confirm. You're going to need to watch me closely. Can your mana sight see me? Yes, I taught her to do that, Penelope says offhandedly. Good, I nod. This will use all 4 of your arms. We'll have to modify it a bit since you have 1 less finger per hand, but that'll just be an extra corrective step every few motions. Ready? I show her the first movement, starting in the standard closed position, all 4 of my hands together. I make sure she can see my fingers as I grasp a thread of mana in each, moving them to begin the artful weave. The mana in front of me bends to my fingertips, and though I no longer need to perform the art this way, it still comes almost as naturally as breathing. My arms pull apart from each other, asymmetrical movements flowing gracefully in time with a step from my body, each micro movement purposeful and timed. Lark, true to her word, does a startlingly commendable job of copying me, but 100 little details are all wrong, and it's the details which make the biggest difference. No, cancel that, you're about to blow yourself up, I sigh, and she does so. Correcting all of her mistakes individually would be a pain, and it would take forever. But she has a perfect memory, doesn't she? Can't I just correct her all at once? I'm going to use motion to guide you, if that's all right? I prompt. You're going to use what? She asks. Huh? Oh. Language barrier. Kineticism, sorry, I tell her. We call it motion. Oh, sure, that's fine, she agrees, nodding. I flicker a confirmation with my eyes, then step behind her to get to work. I seize careful control over her limbs, moving her body into the proper starting position like my mother once did with me. Now channel, and watch the mana as I move it with you. It only takes her about 2 minutes to learn the spell after that. Almost as fast as an Athanatos. Somehow, that makes me feel weirdly proud. Because she is young. Because she's kind of my niece. I don't really deserve to feel proud considering that I barely even did anything, but it's a nice feeling nonetheless. And most importantly, it means she can track teleportation now. Very good, I praise her honestly. We should give you some practice with it before we get close to the teleportation sensing field, and then I'll teach you how to send Penelope and I the coordinates. Yeah, Lark agrees, giving me an odd look. Ready when you are. I signal assent and teleport a short distance to my left. We practice for a while, I give her the second spell she needs, and we move on to testing that. Lark quickly casts and I feel the ping of her spell against my magic resistance. I let it through, and my current spatial coordinates pop up in my mind. Perfectly done, I confirm. Great. You and Jaleesa can make a beeline for ours home base while Penelope and I sabotage the city's detection systems. Jaleesa, can you handle the stealth spells for that? She looks at me in surprise. Probably, she admits. I have been tweaking some improvements into a lot of standardized kinemancy during my time off. I refrain from flinching. I can show them proper casting later, once everyone is safe. Also, did she just call quitting the Templars and no longer having a job time off? That's kind of hilarious, but I'm not sure why. You brought my mundane disguise too, right? Lark asks, walking over and starting to rummage around in Jaleesa's backpack. Yep, Jaleesa confirms. Hopefully it'll be useless, but having another line of defense is never bad. Honestly, Lark admits, pulling out a well-worn owl mask, I just kind of wanted to wear it again. I recognize the mask, but I know it would be a bad idea to comment on it. I turn to Penelope instead. They have all the tools they need to get started, so let's get into position, I suggest. If they fail, they'll likely be in danger, but they probably won't cause an emergency situation, since ours and the splices don't know either of them. But you and I will set off immediate red flags, so we'll have to be extra careful. I don't need to be told the stakes, Penelope answers. It is not as though I intend to allow failure. Heh? I do love her arrogance, sometimes. Fair enough, I concede, weaving all the stealth arts I know around the two of us. Let's head to the closest segment of the detection array, then. She nods and follows as I lead the way, her massive, scaled form moving with effortless grace. I remember how Malik's body felt looking at her, enraptured by the instinctively alluring artistry of her naked flesh. I wonder if that's how Tyler reacts to seeing her, since my sister always had an odd proclivity for scales over chitin. That's just how we Athanatos are, though. Strange and unique in our own ways. Though that means we sometimes conflict, wouldn't eternity be boring if we were all the same? The only unacceptable sort of difference is the kind that harms the people of Liriope. The only unacceptable queen alive is my mother. But I'm trying to think about Penelope right now, so I should focus on that. Looking at her now, I don't feel the way I felt when I wore Malik's flesh, which I find comforting. Becoming a lich gave me my attraction to this woman in the first place, but it also took away my comfort with being attracted at all. Or, well, my comfort with being attracted physically. Vida quite likes how relatively subdued the Athanatos libido is compared to the human one, and while I have to agree that human libidos are excessive, I do feel somewhat of a loss. Penelope likes sex, wanted sex with me, but I'm not able to, not even for her. It feels wrong though, like there's something wrong with me for being this way. It's a frustrating contradiction. I'm longing for the ability to give Penelope that joy, but the reason I'm longing for it is the same reason I'm now unable to. I feel like such a mess of contradictions, sometimes. Is there something on my face? Penelope comments dryly. I've been caught staring. I turn my head forward again. No, I tell her. Apologies. I was just thinking. You do seem unusually thoughtful, Penelope agrees. It's not like you to stare. I feel my eyes twist into an expression of mild irritation. I look at you all the time, I protest. Not with physical eyes, she counters. That's odd for you. Well, I'm not sure how else she expects me to. Oh. My head glances down, slightly. My soul glances up. My tendrils seem oddly calm, wrapped up around my core like a lounging cat. I stretch them, briefly, and then let them coil back up around me. I scratch my chest set through my armor with one before letting it rest, my anima self all there, all me, but oddly subdued. I know, from memory, that I'm usually moving my tendrils all over the place without really thinking about it. I don't pay much attention either way, of course, so I didn't really notice that I wasn't doing that. I even feel a couple insects in range, yet still alive. But I'm not tired or damaged or anything like that, am I? I certainly don't feel like I am. Don't know what this means. I suppose it is, I concede. I feel fine, though, except for general stress about our objectives. Is that what you were thinking about? She asks. No, I admit. I was thinking about sex. That sparks a slight smile out of her. I do seem to have that effect on people, for whatever reason, she muses. I can't imagine why, you incorrigible nudist, I tell her, smirking with my eyes. At least put some armor on for practical reasons. You say that as if what you're wearing is better protection than my uncovered epidermis, she answers smugly. It isn't. I'm wearing enchanted dragon hide and somehow she's not lying. Still, I can't let her get away with that. Is that why I saw you visibly wince when Lark kneed you in the groin after you popped Guldra's head like an overripe fruit? I have since corrected that weakness, Penelope snorts. I'm insulted that you think I didn't. You corrected the weakness by fundamentally altering your biology and not by just putting on some protective pants? Well, I've always preferred dresses, Penelope answers, staring directly at me and sounding completely serious. We stare at each other for a bit, then both of us start to chuckle at the same time. It's not even that funny, it's just nice. We're nearly to the edge of the city now, and the building which houses one of the metal spikes that generate the teleportation detection field is just outside the collection of sky-kissing towers and bridges. Invisibly, we approach. I'm glad the horrific work you did to your soul hasn't damaged your sense of humor, at least, I comment idly, immediately feeling offense boil up in her soul before getting clamped down on and locked away. Which, of course, doesn't do much to contradict my opinion. There's no reason it would, Penelope tells me flatly. Humor isn't an inherently damaging instinct. It can actually be quite healthy. No part of my principles forbids it. But they forbid you from feeling indignant when I say what you've done is horrific? She shrugs. You're entitled to that opinion, and it is better to be clear-headed when I'm making the decision to argue it, Penelope answers easily. And I must admit, I am curious. Don't Thanatos have custom-designed souls? Do you feel the same way about them? I do not feel the same way about us, no, I inform her. No part of me takes offense to the idea that you've redesigned your own soul. It's how you've done it that bothers me. You are a genius at the art of life, Penelope. My clear superior, even though I've had a better education. But the way you perform Numa? It's self-destructive. Dangerously so. We approach the compound, silently levitating over the fence designed to signal people to stay out as much as it's designed to actually keep people out. We don't touch down on the other side, instead staying in the air. It wouldn't be wise to leave footprints. It had to be, Penelope admits quietly. I turn to her again, physically looking with my head. I'm self-conscious about that now, but I do it anyway. What? I ask. I existed solely for her, she tells me. That is the totality of who I was. Had I not been trying to destroy myself, I couldn't have come back at all. I take a deep breath and let it out. That makes a sick sort of sense, it really does. The damage to her soul had already been done by the time she got her own claws in it. She had to make it worse before she could make it better. But the damage won't get repaired like this. She has to know that, right? I'm hardly an expert, but I'm fairly skilled at Numa arts, I tell her. I can help you with the healing process. While I freely admit to multiple imperfections, I can handle them myself, Penelope disagrees. Besides, I don't think the two of us agree on what healing me single quote would look like. I can't let you access my soul. I would never do something to your soul without permission, I insist firmly. Do you not trust me? It's not a matter of trust, Penelope dimisses. I can't let you access my soul, Vita. Oh. A matter of principle, then. I go quiet at that, something beyond the obvious bothering me about what she said. The question stumbles out of my mouth before I can even finish thinking it. Can you call me Morosa? I ask. Surprise crosses Penelope's face only briefly, though her soul erupts with calculations and considerations. Certainly, is what she says out loud. May I ask why? Don't know, I admit. Well, it's not a problem, Melrosa, she assures me, and I relax a bit, signaling thanks with my expression. An expression I'm fairly sure she can actually read, because she has been paying very close attention. I turn away, trying to focus on analyzing the defensive enchantments of the building in front of us despite how I keep getting distracted by my worries. Why do I want to be called Melrosa? I'm still Vita, aren't I? Melrosa can't be consuming Vita, can she? I feel like I'd know if she was predisposed to something like that, since I'm her. Did I just get used to being called Melrosa during my time on Liriope? No, that doesn't make sense. I've been getting called Vita since I got back and I was fine with that. Don't get distracted, Melrosa, Penelope gently chides. I huff out a breath. She's right. I'm a princess. I'm better than this, and I need to act like it. The door enchantments are pretty basic, just a simple magical circuit that gets broken when the door opens. I weave it a temporary new pathway so it'll stay unbroken when the door opens, then telekinetically unlock it from the inside, magically silencing the hinges as I push it ajar. Let's go, I tell her, and she nods. I suppose the security is fairly decent by human standards, and there are quite a few Baldens people wandering around and guarding the area personally, but avoiding them all is trivial. The complex isn't all that large, either, so making it to the center where I can get direct access to the metal spike powering the city-wide enchantments occurs swiftly and without incident. I expected this, of course. The hard part of the operation isn't getting to this thing without being caught, it's deciphering it and modifying it to work in our favor without being caught. That is, to put it lightly, a whole different generation of problems. Anything I can help with? Penelope asks as I run my senses over the metal. I can't see most of it because it's in the ground, so that's a problem too. The whole room is little more than a slightly oversized closet with a few windows to ensure no one can hide in here. Without being invisible, anyway. The spike itself is about 7 feet long but only a couple inches in diameter, with only about 4 feet of it being visible. I can't take the spike out of the ground and actually look at it, so I have to intuit its functions exclusively from how mana flows inside it. Just general overwatch for now, I say. Once I've gotten what I think is a good idea on how this works, I'll ask you to double-check me. She nods and we both get to work. So, the spire has multiple obvious functions, communications with the dozen or so other spikes that form the complete field around the city being chief among them. It looks to be a fairly primitive suite of teleportation detection magic, working by taking constant updates of all spatial data inside the field and comparing it to expected spatial data. When a teleportation spell has a source or destination inside its boundaries, there will be modified data points as a result of the temporary link between two locations. When the source and destination are inside the field, there will be merged spatial coordinates for the same reason, and that can be detected as well. It's very old and inefficient spell work, but unfortunately inefficient doesn't mean ineffective. There are ways to accomplish this sort of magic that would require dramatically less metal and general upkeep to do, but I can't deny that the brute force method still works. And because each spire is in constant contact with its neighbors, simply disabling or modifying the field is a non-starter. If whatever changes I make to this construct are incompatible with the ones it's linked to, the whole place will go on high alert. Thankfully, I don't really need to disable the field, do I? The field isn't stopping me from going after ours, per se, it's just giving ours a heads up when I do. The field can stay, it's only the part which communicates the issue that I need to mess with. I start drafting up a plan of action, and of course that's where things start to go wrong. I feel a soul lift up off the ground and start flying at us incredibly quickly. And not just any soul, it's a splice. A big one. A central soul with a series of smaller grafts, talents on talents on talents. And, of course, a deeply ingrained loyalty to ours. I don't know how we got found out, but the splice's trajectory is too spot on for it to be anything but. I hiss with annoyance. Lark and Jalisa aren't in position. Ours obviously knows we're here now, so he's going to get away. Except, I can still feel his soul, and he's not budging. He's not even worried. I guess he's confident he can get away with Capita next to him? Or does he also know he needs to make sure I'm the one that teleports first? How much does he know about our capabilities? I suppose that until I know the answer, our plan remains the same. If he's going to stick around even though he knows we're here, well, that's his mistake. We've got incoming, I tell Penelope. But the plan is still on. Ours hasn't flown the coop. Quite the arrogant man, she muses. I have come to truly disdain arrogance. All right, you motherfucker. I hear the splice roar from outside, and I recognize his voice. Get out here so I can make this quick. Is that Sky? I couldn't tell from his soul at all. Oh, that poor bastard. Put him out of his misery, would you, Penelope? I ask. Smoldering rage tries desperately to escape the walls of her soul, but the woman ignores it and simply nods. I will ensure our enemy cannot disrupt the operation, she agrees, and slips out of the room to meet the man who got her captured by Gildra in the first place. Or at least what's left of him, however much that is. Chapter 178. I curl my tail in irritation, then immediately become even more irritated at the unconscious movement. Flexing the spine of my tail doesn't have a negative effect on my ability to cast with the many tendrils lining its underside, of course, but both the involuntary movement and the involuntary emotion are unwanted. Annoyance is a frustratingly difficult emotion to suppress, due to the nature of emotional suppression, and my dislike for allowing myself to have thoughtless physical tics is deeply ingrained enough to have survived 2 separate soul mutilations. I simply disdain any reminder that I am not in full control of myself at all times. Though on the subject of soul mutilations, I can't say I'm happy to deal with the reason I had my first one, even if he has somewhat poetically met the same fate that befell me at his hands. Melrosa, would be a more optimal choice of combatant for facing Sky in single combat, but she is busy so the task falls to me. Melrosa. What an interesting correction that is, rife with potential causes, and very few of them good. I ponder the name as I levitate myself silently out of the facility, preparing my opening move against Sky as I go. The Athanatos princess prominence in what has become of Vida makes her frustratingly unpredictable, Melrosa's obvious intellect pairing with Vida's paranoid cunning to make someone who is equal parts dangerous and capricious. The speed at which she shelved her irritation at Lark was uncharacteristic of her, to say the least. Fortuitous, certainly, but not something I'd have expected from the Vida I knew. Perhaps spending more time with her will allow me to understand her better, to recognize the causes and likely results of her strange mood swings, but for now I have only theories. I can only hope we have the time to properly investigate the issue before it blindsides us at the worst possible moment. You can't escape from me. Sky's voice barks from above. I can feel you. Then why are you blabbering about it out loud instead of getting a preemptive strike off? Not to mention the presumptuousness of assuming I'm trying to escape. I don't respond out loud, of course, because that would be wasteful. It's been a contemptible indulgence to even think about it this much internally. I finally emerge from the complex, still invisible and inaudible because revealing myself just because someone says they know where I am would be foolish. Sky is hovering up above me, still wearing the body I crafted for him, but a quick glance at his soul paints a different picture. He is a victim of ours now, his soul enhanced by numerous pulsating grafts that make him more or less unrecognizable. His core almost looks like it's been turned inside out, hardly even appearing human anymore. Yet he floats in the air with the same smug imperiousness as always, the same impatience for subtleties. He looks the same as he always did, in posture and expression and attitude, and if all that is the same it makes me wonder what the hideous additions to his soul did change. He turns and looks in my direction as I float slowly up to meet him, closing the distance between the two of us at a sedate pace least likely to appear threatening. I suppose this proves he does, indeed, know where I am, but I remain invisible anyway. Well, aren't you a big one? Sky sneers, glaring down at me. A light telekinetic force crawls over my body, pressing lightly around my face, my wings, my breasts, my hips, my tail, my nether regions. It's not harmful and there's very little I can do to prevent it, so I ignore the sensation. It's so delicate that I suspect most people wouldn't be able to feel it at all. Sky's mouth twists from a glower to a crude grin as he runs his talon over my naked flesh, and he speaks again. Vesuvius, he greets me. I'd heard what you'd done to yourself, but I found it hard to believe. Here you are, though. Nearly 8 feet of woman, as teasingly plump as ever. I'd always suspected you were an exhibitionist, so it's nice to see that confirmed. It figures that your idea of transcending humanity is just making your tits bigger. My breasts are only bigger to match my larger body. Proportionally, they are identical to my former human form. I kept them that way on purpose, partly because I've actually done research and testing on the optimal chest-to-body ratio and it would be foolish to waste that effort, and partially because when I designed this body I was still capable of vanity. I'm not anymore, but my body remains as it is for practical reasons. Attractiveness is a tool, and tools can be used as weapons. But of course, I say none of this either, and merely keep approaching. Sky keeps allowing me to, because he believes he is stronger in close quarters than I am anyway. He might even be right. Nothing to say? He taunts unsuccessfully. Not that I'm complaining. I've never liked your voice. So damn haughty and perfect. You were always more attractive when you were quiet. Or just moaning. I wonder what he thinks he's accomplishing by saying this. Perhaps he isn't trying to accomplish anything at all, and is just being crude for the sake of it. I once would have dismissed it as just that, but Sky is a man that successfully fooled me into believing I had him wrapped around my finger despite the truth being anything but. He is so vulgar that I often forget he is cunning, enough to not only fool me but to run one of the most successful criminal enterprises in the city. Is it just an affectation? Is he aware of the tendency to cause people to underestimate him that his demeanor causes? Or does he simply enjoy getting under people's skin? His efforts are useless either way. I don't have skin to get under anymore, neither literally nor metaphorically, and even if I did I wouldn't be offended by his reference to our frankly quite enjoyable bouts of sexual intercourse. I made those sounds because I knew he would like them, because I was aware he was insecure enough to need the knowledge that yes, he was indeed quite proficient at using his newly physical manhood. Simply telling him so would have been ineffective, so it was better to not use words. That increased his confidence, which in turn increased his proficiency, and we both benefited as a result. Even Capita, busy as she was finding ways to occupy herself on either side of him, was quite pleased with the situation. I have nothing to be ashamed of. Well, I suppose that's not even remotely true, but I have nothing to be ashamed of in regards to my sexual exploits. And if Sky is clever, and I must assume that he is, he knows this. So why mention it? I suppose it doesn't matter. I'm enraged now. What's wrong, Vesuvius? Too proud to, Sky starts to taunt again, but I cut him off by turning everything within a 5-foot radius of his center of mass into plasma. It feels strangely fitting to kill him with Gerda's signature spell. He is the reason I miss her, after all. I clamp down on that feeling and lock it away, forcing myself to focus on evasive maneuvers. A furious and now unarmed Sky roars at me, having unfortunately avoided instant death thanks to his unnatural agility. He dives down at me, blood trailing behind him. The open wound gives me an easy vector for infection, and I try to capitalize on it but end up getting confusing feedback from my talent. Holding back an irritated hiss, I dodge Sky's mad assault. Too much uncertainty. I can't use my talent in these conditions. The burning need I feel for obeying my principles multiplies as my talent is denied. That's how my system works, in essence. I could not find a way to stop my talent from urging me to use it. Whenever I repressed that part of my soul, it grew back in mere hours. Perhaps if I carved my entire talent away I could manage it, but I've no way to know the consequences of such a thing, and I doubt any of them would be good. So instead, I took that urge and rerouted it. Failing to use my talent no longer multiplies my need to use it, but instead my need to obey the strictures I have imposed upon myself. And since those strictures often restrict my talent usage, It's an effective positive feedback loop. I wouldn't call it elegant, or even truly safe, but it is effective. And that is an improvement over my prior system, just try my hardest to be good, since that was obviously not effective at all. Anyway, I need to focus on the battle at hand. I easily dodged Sky's approach, but it would seem that closing the distance with me was not his objective. Instead, he reaches the ground, carving a gouge into the stone with his telekinesis and launching the fragmented shards in my direction at such incredible speeds that they crack the air like a whip. Pathetic. Such an attack would be harmless to me, even if I took a lucky shot to the eye. But underestimating an opponent is foolish, so I dodge anyway. It is fortunate that I do, because the moment the projectiles fly past me, they explode into searing bursts of heat and force, the shock wave knocking me to the side and causing me to crash through the wall of a nearby building. So, he can turn objects affected by his telekinesis into bombs now. That's new. I shake off some rubble with a flick of my tail and exit the building through a different wall, just in time to see the spot I had landed burst into another set of explosions. I need to move back towards the facility and put myself between it and Sky. He probably isn't allowed to use such destructive abilities in the general direction of the city's defensive network. What's wrong, Vesuvius? I thought you liked it rough. Sky laughs, the blood from his missing arm already slowing its flow. Is that his stump starting to form already? Is he regenerating? I cease maintaining mana flow to my stealth spells so I can focus more on combat. Irritatingly, he also seems to shoot me less while he's talking, which means I'm incentivized to banter. Ugh. What to say, what to say? Countering with similarly body conversation will only encourage him to continue, and there aren't any angles I can really pull on there. The obvious rejoinders, talking about Capita or her child, are ineffective given the fact that she was quite enthusiastically participating in bed with us, and it would just lead to Sky countering by talking about Vita, and I don't want him to think about Vita because I am currently running a distraction operation for that exact purpose. Besides, mentioning her would be similarly pointless to mentioning Capita since Vita could not care less who I sleep with, even if that person happens to be a mass-murdering treasonous narcissist. Although speaking of mass murder, that does give me a good idea for a conversation topic. For a man who wanted to help the poor so badly that he decided to kill all rich people, you're certainly working hard to uphold the status quo, I tell him. Oh. Finally sassing Sky starts, but his sentence is somewhat drowned out by all the lightning I take the opportunity to blast him with. He shrieks in agony for a moment, giving me time to reposition, but he does not fall unconscious or die like I was expecting him to. Definitely a talent for regeneration, then, if not also anatomical reinforcement. That explains the issues I was having with figuring out a disease that might work on him. Watch your fucking damn it, Vesuvius. Sky roars at me once I cease channeling my electrical attack. He seemed to be getting more and more resistant to it, so I stopped wasting my energy. Do you have to keep cutting me off when I'm trying to fucking talk? It's the most optimal time to, I briefly ceased speaking as I dodged the incoming explosive projectile that I'd been expecting and wait for the shockwave to pass. To attack you, I finish. You tend to get distracted by your own voice. He barks out a laugh at that, to my mild surprise. He seems to be in an unusually good mood overall, really. Ha! You know, I've never liked you, Vesuvius. This news shocks and saddens me, I lie to his face. But here's the thing, he continues, and I let him this time. I don't hate you, Vesuvius. Not anymore. I hated you for a bit when we first met, sure. I saw you as part of the problem. But the more we got to know each other, the more I realized you were trying to solve the same problem I was. You just had a dumbass way of going about it. Having my methods disparaged by a man whose plan was to kill everyone he didn't like and pick up the pieces later is truly the most scathing insult you've managed to conceive thus far, I admit honestly. I do not hate you either, Sky, though I suspect it is for no reason other than incapability. You have hurt me more deeply than anyone else alive. Many would argue that you have killed me. And I do not bear a grudge over this. A sharp pain in my belly flares when I say those words, but I ignore it. There's nothing physically wrong with me, so it's just false pain from damaged bits of my soul. No, the thing I truly cannot forgive is that you won, I continue. You succeeded with your wild ambition. You did exactly what you set out to do. You carved the rot from Skyhope, extracted a massive, bleeding tumor from the heart of our city. And only then did you realize someone had to heal the wound that made. And so your grand ambition did nothing but bleed out, taking the rest of us with it. You're too clever for your own good, Sky, yet still far too stupid to be good for anyone else. He opens his mouth to respond and I fire a concentrated light ray between his eyes, burning through his skull, his brain, and out the back of his head in an instant. My principles make it difficult for me to kill people, most of the time, but this is not one of those times. Sky is guilty of 1,000 different death-worthy crimes. He is an actively dangerous combatant disrupting an operation of great importance, and he is not trustworthy enough to be believed even if he were to claim surrender, due to his history of betrayal. Untimely, hypocritical and utterly horrific betrayal, far more cruel than simple death. A clean death like this is more than he deserves. But it's nothing personal, of course. I ignore a no doubt entirely unrelated urge to scream when I see Sky's body fail to fall out of the sky, his forehead starting to repair itself. Nobody should be that durable other than me. I sent some neutered diseases his way, safe and pathetic ones with no interesting attributes, just to put extra strain on his regeneration as I attempt to prepare another annihilation spell. It is exhausting to cast so many powerful spells in sequence, and unfortunately it's not the kind of exhaustion I can simply flush out of my system with what I've learned from Bentley's talent. No, this is the sort of exhaustion that strains the soul, massive amounts of mana entering and leaving it as my tail repeatedly weaves the kind of spells that our nation would have considered impossible just a few decades ago. The only upper limits to my magical prowess are knowledge and mana capacity, and it is very much the latter which is being strained here. I flinch as something in my soul painfully cracks, and I'm forced to abandon my spells out of self-preservation. A deep ache suffuses my body, and I know better than to strain myself further when I'm already at my limit. Today has been a very long day full of sustained spellcasting, but even then I should have been capable of casting much more powerful spells much more often than I already have. Something must be severely agitating my soul internally. How frustrating. I need to figure out how to fix that. I haven't learned how to stop having emotions. I've only learned how to make them stop influencing me, to remove them from my conscious decision-making process. I'm fully aware that they are still there, bubbling around inside me and being dangerous to the world. Trying their best to make me unstable. It's just another thing I still need to improve. In the meantime, I'll have to reduce the stress on my soul and cease casting all non-essential spells. I'll let myself drop to the ground, my feet both creating small craters where I land. I glower up at Sky, quickly re-evaluating my options. His brain is probably regenerating based on a backup contained in his soul. I'll have to unbond his soul from his body in order to kill him, either through animancy or raw brute force. And I am currently unable to safely cast animancy. 3 times. Sky roars furiously, his whole body shuddering as it finishes regrowing its flesh. 3 fucking times you take a jab shot at me while I'm in the middle of trying to say something. Then shut up, I snap at him, beckoning with a come hither gesture. Quit running your mouth and try to kill me already. I thought you liked what I do with my mouth, he answers, and I wrinkle my nose. Goodness. The man did not used to be this body. It must be the influence of one of the souls leeching off his own. Maybe that's also why he won't shut the fuck up, the disgusting literal bastard. You haven't earned the right to be listened to, I tell him frankly. That finally gets him to charge me. Good. Now I just need to win a fist fight with a man who can turn metal into dust by just working nearby and thinking at it. Shouldn't be too hard. Being a proper lady of noble-born origins, I have never been much of a brawler. It's not something I've ever needed or wanted to learn. I didn't put myself in supreme physical condition to ignore the kind of experience necessary to take advantage of that, however. As Sky falls towards me, I lower my stance, taking a steadying breath. Let my entire body be the lever with which I impart force. Let the island itself be my fulcrum. Step. Twist. Strike. I do not strike with a fist, because that would be inefficient. Humans use fists because to strike with the tips of their fingers is to invite weakness. If the finger bends or breaks on impact, you've wasted enough force to more than nullify any advantage one might gain from the reduced area of impact. Obviously, I have no such weakness. I lock my joints, trusting my bones to withstand anything I need them to. My clawed fingertips make for Sky's neck, aiming to divest him of his entire head. The air screams at our movements, but when our bodies meet it is no dramatic clang of blades. I feel like I am striking a vat of molasses that's trying to rip my skin off. Sky's telekinetic power slows me immensely, fighting my every movement and desperately trying to worm its way into my arm and rip me apart from the inside. My natural magic resistance protects everything underneath my skin, however, and the skin itself resists even the obscene forces Sky can throw at them. But still, his defense is enough to slow me. I carve open his neck, but it isn't enough. He dodges enough damage to survive, and that's all he needs to do. My whole body is within optimal range for his power now, and he's tearing against my entire body at once, holding me in place as he searches for weak points in my flesh. Which gives him time for his neck to heal, so of course he immediately starts fucking tucking again. You talk a lot of shit about the perception event, but that's your problem, Vesuvius. That's the reason I could never like you. You're fake. No, worse than that, you want to be fake. I strain my muscles against him, my heart pounding and body vibrating, but I'm locked in place. Sky floats at eye level, smirking as his telekinetic assault picks and peels at my scales, probing and pressing with ever-increasing pressure. You want everyone to love you and see you as the prim and proper little noblewoman doing everything by the book, working within the system, checking all your little boxes, doing all your grand plans in the shadows and making sure everything is perfect and fucking over as many people as you need to in order to keep looking like you're a good person. And all the while, you're barely helping fucking anybody. For 2 years we worked together, and for 2 years your girlfriend rotted in prison while you did jack shit because you were so obsessed with freeing her in a way that wouldn't get you caught that you didn't care if that meant passing up the chance to free her at all. I growl at him, but I can't do much else with my jaw locked in place. My head and soul throb, and all the while I still can't move. What's wrong, Vesuvius? Sky asks, lessening the pressure on my jaw. Got something to say? For a slave to an abusive monster, you sure do prattle on a lot about how I've failed to make the world a better place, I grunt. Ours will make the world a better place, Sky insists, his eyes fervent. We'll all finally be equal under his rule. Ugh. Bad tactic on my part. There's no using logic to dislodge such an obviously illogical ideology. I strain my leg muscles against the ground and start to make a bit of headway, but he just lifts me into the air and gives me nothing to press on, no way to move. And then he starts to find his way in. The smaller, thinner scales on my tail tendrils, worn from constant flexing and constant motion. He tugs harder back there, and starts to peel me apart. You talk the talk, Vesuvius, I'll give you that. You act like you're mad at all the right people. But you don't fucking do anything about them anywhere except behind the curtain. It's too slow. There are too many fuckers that need to get cut and not enough of you. It was a battle you were always going to lose. Just like this one. There are not many people physically capable of making this body bleed. Sky adds himself to their number, scale by scale. I hear myself growling even louder, but I ignore it. So frustrating. How can I still be so weak? If Vida weren't busy, Sky's soul would already be in a dozen pieces, chewed and swallowed with contemptuous ease. The thought makes my snarl even more pronounced. I do not need her help. I will not let her help. I am First Lady Penelope Vesuvius, and I am no one's lesser. You're absolutely right, I tell Sky, awarding me with my first glimpse of genuine surprise on his face. I won't let you disparage my triumphs. I did make Skyhope a better place, but it's true that I was hesitant, subdued, perhaps insufficiently zealous. I saw the injustice I was trying to fight. But you lived it. Your anger was always greater than mine. Exactly, he hisses, seeming genuinely pleased. You don't have the anger, Vesuvius. You were always one step removed from it, never really caring. You enjoyed being part of the problem too much. I hum in agreement. As did you. The bloody gouges Sky is digging into my tail suddenly halt, giving me an opportunity to start regenerating them. I don't need it. What did you say? Sky asks dangerously. I take a deep breath and start channeling Mono again, a smile twitching at my lips. You've suffered. You've been trodden on. You think that gives you a free pass to being an incorrigible piece of shit. It doesn't. If Sky wants to make this a battle of kineticism, I'll make this a battle of kineticism. Ignoring the pain in my belly, ignoring the mental demands to abort, I start to shove power into my arms. I start to move them, slowly but surely, to that bastard's face. You don't care about Skyhope, I sneer. You've never cared about anyone other than yourself. Oh, you want to change things, sure, but it was never about making the world better. It was only about flipping the script, putting yourself on top instead of anyone else. And the saddest part about all of this? The thing that makes you so fucking pitiable? You believe I'm wrong about that. Sky tries to fly away and that's all the opening I need to snatch him, reversing the situation in an instant. My claws wrap around his head, smothering him completely. He starts to struggle, and I start to squeeze, savoring the delightful cracks and snaps as his skull starts to fracture. You actually, genuinely have your head so far up your ass that you think you're doing the world a favor whenever you break wind. You legitimately believe that if everyone who disagreed with you would just shut up or die, all the problems would be solved. And you don't even think about how that just makes you the next monstrous king that all the trodden folk want to kill. You legitimately think that you're just better than the people in charge, so that just magically won't happen to you. He starts screaming, focusing all his power to try and rip my hands off his face, but I've interlocked my fingers and I'm not going anywhere. All he accomplishes is freeing my tail to wrap him up and start crushing the rest of his bones, too. So I hope you're fucking happy, Sky, I taunt him. You did it. You managed to talk so much contemptible bullshit at my face that you've motivated me to monologue back, just like old times. So allow me to hit you with my thesis conclusion. You're a failure. You have always been a failure. You were always destined for failure, because you never stopped to check outside your self-centered bubble of righteousness. I may not have your drive, but you forgot the one thing that makes your drive worth anything. You lack principle. And with that I up the pressure further, letting the fractures turn into breaks and the breaks turn into complete, shattered messes. Sky's screaming stops long before he's dead, his lungs punctured by nearly all of his ribs simultaneously, unable to take a breath of anything other than blood. Even when I finally bring my palms together and splatter the contents of his head all over my face and chest, my eyes enraptured by the liquid arc of viscera as it flies through the air, he's still alive, his soul clinging desperately onto his body as it tries to regrow his brain. So I continue to shatter and break, to rip off limbs and sever his spine in a dozen places, letting wet, unidentifiable clumps collapse to the ground and stomping them hard enough to put cracks in the earth. Some still living part of me thinks of Golda's face every time my foot comes down, and that ensures the next one drops even harder. Betrayer. Bastard. Asshole. Even once his soul finally detaches from flesh, going inert and unequivocally dead, I continue to strike the pace that was once his corpse a few more times. Just to be thorough. My breath heavy, I slowly correct myself, returning to my normal, regal posture. There's a crack in the wall of my soul that I'll have to repair soon, but with ours still alive I can't honestly consider it the first priority right now. Still dripping with blood, shards of bone sticking to the warm, red sludge, I turn around. Vida is there, her insectoid eyes smiling at me with horrid, macabre warmth. If not for Sky, I would still love her. That looked cathartic, she comments happily, You were watching? I ask, frowning. You could have stepped in, saved me the trouble. It didn't feel like you wanted me to, she answers, picking up Sky's dead soul with a tendril. I scowl and look away. I hope she eats it. I doubt she will. I thought you were busy accomplishing a more important task, I say. That's all. Well, I'm done. All that's left is to chase down ours. I nod, wiping my face with a hand and somehow coming out of it feeling like they both got more blood on them. Then lead the way, Melrosa, I invite her. She nods and takes off into the SK, into the air, and I follow her, preparing the teleportation spell we'll likely need to chase him down. Annoyingly, Vita was right about my weight. Damaged as I am, I should not be teleporting with her. I don't think I could teleport myself alone right now, let alone both of us. I'll have to send her on her way alone, but that was always the plan to some extent. I'd ignored the citizens of Baldoni during my fight, but suffice to say we no longer have the element of surprise on our side. Everyone is well aware of our presence, and we don't attempt to mask it as we approach our current location. I don't know where that is, only Vita does, so she leads us to her. Lark and Jalisa Vita are invisibly waiting, the ceiling of a large, flat bunker, one of the only buildings in the city that isn't multiple stories tall. Is this the place? I ask, ignoring Lark and Jalisa Vita as their eyes seem to bulge at the sight of the blood on my body. About 50 feet directly below us, yeah, Vita confirms. Last call for preparation. If anyone isn't ready, say so now. It sounds like he's underground, Jalisa Vita comments. How are we getting down there, exactly? Well, Vita answers, pulling out one of the metal daggers on her hip with a tentacle and giving it a flip. Like this, Sky, clear us a path. She drops the dagger and it falls straight down, obliterating all the matter between us and our destination. The soul of the man I just killed is in there, awake and aware. I have to admit it is a practical use of resources. It is the optimal method of descent. I move to pick up Lark and follow, but she and Jalisa Vita both grab onto Vita, presumably to avoid being covered in Sky, and the three of them go down together. I follow. I won't be able to follow, I tell Vita, so I'll teleport you first. Save your own for after. Got it, she confirms. We fall through the bunker's ceiling, and I barely catch a glimpse of ours before Capita touches him and he vanishes. I feel the spatial coordinates enter my mind thanks to Lark's spell, so I touch Vita and she vanishes a moment afterwards, leaving Lark and Jalisa Vita to drop to the ground, both of them immediately flanking the teleporter's place. I surrender, both of her bodies say together, and combined with the vulnerability caused by her pregnancy that firmly puts her in the category of people I am not able to hurt. Damn. I look around the inside of the bunker, instead. It's a large room, lined nearly wall to wall with naked, sedated Baldan's people, their souls in various states of disrepair. They're strapped up vertically, their arms bound to their sides and their heads lolling, drool pooling in many of their mouths. Some of them are dead. Some of them are children. Yet while that is vaguely horrifying, nothing else stands out as atrocious. Ours lab is impressively clean and sterile, no blood, no injured or dying, nothing. Everyone here would seem perfectly healthy were I not able to see their souls. I wonder which souls are in worse shape right now. Theirs, or mine? I'm not feeling like myself at all, I need to do repairs soon. What is this place? Lark whispers. It is the artist's workshop, of course, one of the Capita bodies replies helpfully. The other seems distracted by her own belly, still swollen with the child she holds. It doesn't have a soul yet, its brain still too undeveloped for the miswatcher to have given it one. A welcome mercy. You seem oddly unperturbed with us being here, Jalisa Vita comments. My role is done, Capita says as if that explains everything. I am to wait until he returns. You are free to do so as well, if you like. Search the area for traps and fail-safes, I order the other two. Then we'll start dismantling all of this as safely and quickly as possible. Capita, to me. I am going to knock you unconscious. Okay, she agrees easily. May I ask why you're covered in blood? I killed the father of your child, I tell her. Why did I phrase it like that? That's basically goading her into attacking me. Oh, both copy this answer, blinking in sync. Well, that's okay. Again, she rubs her belly, smiling down at her growing baby. Ours will be a better father anyway. The room goes silent. Lark, Jaleesa, and I all share a moment knowing those words will return to us in nightmares. Until this moment, I believe I wanted to kill Capita. She declared me damned for what I did to Nugas, but then left me to the same fate? Hypocrite. Monster. She is everything she hated, and she always was. Why shouldn't I kill her? For everything she's done, she deserves it. But I don't feel that urge anymore. After all, it would seem she's currently experiencing a fate worse than death. I'll have to be sure to remove the part of me which finds that so pleasing. Tope continued,